Hello everyone, welcome to another episode on Breaker Bolt. On today's episode, we're going to replace the bushings on our M3 rear subframe and possibly replace the rear trailing arm bushings as well. So this is my M3 rear subframe. I do not have the tools to remove the bushings, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to torch the old bushings and take them out. Now that I cleaned the subframe, I'm just gonna wipe it down with acetone and give it a light coat of paint to just get rid of all these scratches because I don't want to start rusting in the future. So, I mean, I was thinking about painting the whole thing, but that was a lot. I was thinking about painting the subframe, but I figured it's gonna get scratched either way, and it's not gonna be obviously visible, so. It's just to prevent it from rusting in the future, just in case. To take the rear trailing arm bracket, you're going to use an 18mm wrench and an 80mm socket. Seems pretty rusted. To take this bushing off, you could use a ball joint press bushing from any AutoZone or any other auto parts store. I'm just going to use like a puller, and some, just like a makeshift thing to take it out. I'm using the bolt with a couple of washers. This is actually the washer from the differential cover, so I'm going to use that. And let's see. Okay, there you go. So this is the bushing kit. I got it from Garages. These are the rear subframe bushings for M3. They are marked inside where it goes. So this one says top, and so you don't have to worry about which bushing goes where. And these two are the rear trailing arm bushings, and this is the front control arm bushings. Plus I got the differential bushings and all the metal pieces which goes in here in the freezer, so it's easier to squeeze them in because when they're cold they shrink and it'll just slide in. So that's about it. I guess we'll start putting these bushings in. So I'm gonna start by throwing the control arm bushings. I'm just gonna use a 400 grit sandpaper and just clean up. And I'm gonna use some degreaser to clean it up. I use Purple Power. This thing is actually pretty good. I've used it to clean a lot of stuff, and it works pretty well. So the trailing arm surface is somewhat clean, and I'm going to use some of the lube you get from the kit. Just going to use them on the edge. I'm gonna use a mallet to push it in. Okay, that sounds pretty good. Do the same for the other side. I'm putting the grease on the edge because once you start pushing it in, it's gonna get spread. So all you have to do is just push it on, put it some on the edge of the rim, and it'll get pushed in. Okay, that's about it. So this is the metal ring I was talking to you about. I had it in the freezer, so it'll shrink a bit. Let's try to get it in as soon as I can. Okay, that's about it. Now I can throw in the trailing arm bracket. So it's time to put the subframe bushings. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to use some 400 grit sandpaper and clean up the cavities so it's smooth. Alright, it's time to put the bushings in. A couple of things I want to remind. So the garage stick bushings are actually labeled which one it is, and keep in mind the top front bushing has a lip. So this lip should sit where the weld is. So make sure when you put it in a way where it sits perfectly with the weld. If not, it's gonna raise a bit, so you want to avoid that. I'm going to use the lower front first. I don't know if you can see it. It's marked. Like I said earlier, I'm just barely putting on the front edge, so once I push it in, it'll spread out evenly. Seated perfectly. So the front top one is the one you gotta be quite mindful about, so it'll sit perfectly, and it has space for the grooves of the weld. Okay, that's about right. So there's the metal ring for the front one. The other thing is the rear ring. So I don't know if you can notice, the rear ring has a bigger hole compared to the front one. It's because you're gonna put the rear first to align the bolt in. So make sure you put the ring with the bigger inner diameter on the rear. Take care of the ones on the other side as well now. So here's my differential. I'm gonna do the same, clean up the cavities for the bushings and start prepping them for the bushing. So I'm gonna use a 400 grit sandpaper and sand it down a little bit. So this is the garage stick differential bushings. I don't know if you can see it. There's like grooves all along. So I believe that is for compression. So it could expand and compress. I'm guessing that's what it is. So let's throw this in. I had this in the freezer for a couple of hours, so it should kind of go smooth. That's about it. We got all our bushings except for the front control arm bushings. I was planning on bolting up the complete rear end up to the car, but I found out that one of the driver's side half shaft CV joint is crapped out. Yeah, so I had to figure out if I'm going to replace the CV joint or complete half shaft. Depending what I find, I'll let you guys know next week. Hopefully I'll be able to get the whole subframe bolted up by then. A couple of things about the bushing kit. It's garage stick complete M3 bushing kit, which includes the subframe bushings, differential bushings, and rear trailing arm bushings, plus the front control arm bushings. I did not use the control arm bushings yet because I had to figure out what kind of control arm I'm going to use. So progress on that in the following episodes. These bushings are 80A, so I believe they have several different categories of bushings. There's 80A, 95A, and then there's daily. 80A is street, daily driving, and some autocross application, and whereas the 95A is for autocross and race. The other kind, I believe it's completely race and drift only. Basically the hardness of the bushing and how, if there's no flex in the bushings, you're gonna feel all the vibration. Since this car is mostly gonna be daily driven, you know, some autocross or something like that. So I went with the 80A bushings. And that's about it. Take your time when you do it. I did it by setting the bushings on fire. You could get the BMW bushing removal kit. I believe it's like 100 and something somewhere. That's what I saw. But for me, setting them on fire worked out. And the rear trailing arm bushings, you'll be able to take it off by buying a ball joint removal kit from any of the auto parts store. You don't have to buy it, they'll actually rent you the kit, and once you get the job done you can return it back. I was able to throw some of the pieces together and make like a homemade press to take it out. Keeping the metal rings in the freezer helps out a lot because they shrink and it'll squeeze in between the bushings really nicely. Yeah, I think that's about it. I think I covered most of everything. Hopefully on the next episode we'll start bolting up the subframe. Until then, keep breaking bolts.